I never thought I'd be the husband who got cheated on. I mean, I always considered myself a decent guy. I have a steady job as an IT consultant, and I thought I provided well for my family. My wife, Melissa, and I had been married for nearly 8 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but what relationship does? We were supposed to be a team, navigating the world together. We shared laughs, late-night talks, and we had our favorite restaurant, a cozy Italian place called Giuseppe's that we frequented more than I'd like to admit. But recently things had felt off. In the past few months, Melissa had been distant, more than just the usual life's got me stressed type of distance. It was subtle at first. She started spending more nights out with friends. When I'd ask her about it, she'd roll her eyes, claiming she just needed some space. "You wouldn't understand," she'd say, as if my love and concern were burdensome. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a phase. But then came the night she got lost driving to Giuseppe's. This was a restaurant we had visited countless times. It was practically our second home. I remember her calling me, panic-stricken, saying she was stuck in traffic and couldn't figure out how to get there. I found that odd. I told her to turn around and I would meet her at home. But then I received a text that shook me. It was from a number I didn't recognize, saying, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I'll pick you up at 8." My heart dropped. I confronted her when she finally made it home, but she laughed it off, saying it was just a friend playing a prank. "You're so paranoid, Greg." She smirked, flipping her hair over her shoulder dismissively. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the seed of doubt had been planted and it kept gnawing at me. After that night, I started paying closer attention to her. The little things began to add up. She was texting on her phone more often, her responses were vague, and she had this new perfume I had never smelled before. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. One evening, while she was taking a shower, I decided to take a peek at. Oh, I know it's a violation of trust, but I felt like I was losing my mind. I scrolled through her messages and there it was, an entire thread with a guy named Derek. The messages were flirty, filled with inside jokes and emojis. My stomach turned as I read more, each message revealing a deeper connection than anything I had with her. They planned secret meetups, and she had sent him pictures that were definitely not meant for my eyes. From shock, I transitioned to anger. I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her without proof. I had to gather more evidence. I felt like a detective stalking my wife in a world of lies. I would follow her, see where she went when she said she was out with friends. I was determined to figure out how deep this rabbit hole went. It was a Tuesday night when I decided to follow her. My heart raced as I watched her slip out of the house, looking gorgeous in a tight red dress. The kind of dress I hadn't seen in our home for a while. I knew she was going out, but I needed to know where. I hopped in my car and trailed behind her, my mind racing with possibilities. I followed her to a bar across town. My heart sank as I watched her walk into the entrance. I didn't want to believe it, but a part of me knew. I parked a few blocks away and waited. It wasn't long before a man walked in after her, Derek. I could hardly breathe. I wanted to confront them, to storm in and demand answers, but I needed to keep my cool. Instead, I sat and watched. I could see them laughing and flirting through the window, the way they leaned into each other and the way she touched his arm. It felt like someone was squeezing my heart and I wanted to scream. I felt like the world was closing in on me. I knew it was time to confront her, but I needed to be ready. I couldn't let the emotional turmoil cloud my judgment. I spent the next few days crafting my approach, rehearsing what I would say. I was determined to expose her lies and finally get an explanation. As I sat in my car, replaying everything in my mind, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. I was going to confront Melissa, and there would be no way for her to weasel out of it this time. I had proof, and I was going to use it. The confrontation was coming, and I wasn't sure what it would lead to, but I knew it would change everything. The next day, I was going to take matters into my own hands. The day of the confrontation loomed heavy over me like a storm cloud, and I barely functioned at work. My mind was consumed with thoughts of what I would say to Melissa and how she would react. I knew I couldn't let her charm me out of my concerns this time. No more naivete. I had seen the truth, and I was ready to face it, no matter how painful. When Melissa came home that evening, she seemed unusually cheerful. She had a glow that made my heart ache with conflicting emotions. I wanted to hate her for the betrayal, but there was still a part of me that loved her deeply. The way she smiled, the way she flirtily asked about my day, it all felt like a cruel joke. It was like she was playing with fire, knowing full well what was about to happen. "Hey Greg, I was thinking we could go out for dinner tonight, just the two of us. How does that sound?" She chirped, her voice light and inviting. "Actually, I don't think so," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk first?" Her expression faltered briefly, but she quickly masked it with that familiar, irritating smile. "Sure, what's wrong?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I know about Derek," I blurted out, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "I saw the texts and I followed you. I know you've been seeing him behind my back." Her reaction was immediate. The smile vanished, replaced by a look of disbelief that quickly morphed into anger. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, crossing her arms defensively. "You've lost your mind, Greg." "I'm not crazy," I shot back, holding my ground. "I saw you together. I saw the way you looked at him. I know everything." She took a step back, her demeanor shifting as the facade began to crack. "So you just decided to stalk me. You invaded my privacy." Her voice dripped with disdain, but I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. "I did what I had to do," I yelled, feeling the rage boil within me. "You've been lying to me for months. I deserve to know the truth." As we stood there, the tension electric, she tried to regain her composure. "Okay, fine. Maybe I've been spending time with him, but it's not what you think." "I needed someone to talk to, Greg. You've been so distant," she argued, her voice rising in panic. "Distant? You think that justifies cheating on me?" I felt my heart shatter as the reality of her betrayal hit me again. "You could have talked to me, we could have worked it out together." She scoffed. "You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't care." Her words stung, and I felt the anger turn to despair. How could she be so dismissive? Caring would have meant you at least tried to communicate instead of sneaking around with someone else, I retorted, frustration spilling over. In that moment she shifted tactics, her tone changing from defensive to almost seductive. "Look, maybe I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We have something real, Greg. You can't just throw it away over some texts." "Some text," I echoed incredulously. "These aren't just texts, Melissa. This is my life. You've betrayed me in the worst way possible." Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine remorse. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did," she stammered, her voice breaking. "But the thing is, it did happen," I said stubbornly, pushing through the emotional pain. "You made a choice, and now I have to make one too." I felt my pulse quicken as the reality of my situation settled in. I could no longer ignore the implications of her betrayal. I had fought for this marriage, but how could I stay with someone who had disrespected our vows so casually? "Greg, please, I'll end things with him. I promise." She pleaded, her voice desperate, but I was already stepping back, shaking my head. "It's not just about ending things. It's about trust and—" "You shattered that. I can't be with someone who thinks this is just a phase or a mistake. You need to understand how serious this is." Her eyes widened as the realization hit her. She was losing me. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I mean I need time. I don't know if I can forgive this," I said, my heart heavy. "I never thought our love would come to this." I turned my back on her, feeling the weight of my decision settling in. I didn't look back as I walked away, leaving her standing there, a mix of anger and desperation on her face. I felt like I was stepping into unknown territory, but I knew I had to take control of my own life. That night I lay awake, replaying the conversation in my mind, feeling like I was in a fog. The emotional toll was overwhelming, and I couldn't shake the sense of loss. This wasn't just about Melissa anymore. It was about my self-respect and what I wanted from my life. I would have to decide how to move forward, but for now, I needed time to breathe and think. The days following the confrontation with Melissa were surreal. I felt like I was living in someone else's life, a twisted version of reality where the person I thought I knew had been hiding behind a mask. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was a storm of confusion and anger. Every time I tried to focus, memories of our good times together would bubble to the surface, only to be crushed by the weight of her betrayal. I moved into the guest room, needing that physical separation to process everything. Seeing her in the kitchen or hearing her laugh from the living room felt like a taunt. I could hear her on the phone, laughing with her friends, and I felt this intense pang of jealousy and sadness. It was infuriating to think how easily she slipped back into her normal life while I was drowning in despair. One night, I finally found the courage to revisit her texts. I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through the messages between her and Derek. Each line cut deeper than the last, the playful banter starkly contrasting with the grim reality we now faced. I felt bile rise in my throat when I saw how easily she had shared intimate moments and inside jokes with him, moments that I'd always thought were just for us. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit and wallow in the pain of betrayal. I decided to confront Melissa again, but this time I wanted to focus on the future, on how to move forward. I needed answers beyond just her apologies. That evening, after she returned from her run, another new routine she seemed to have picked up. I confronted her again. I was nervous, packing the living room as I waited for her to come back inside. When she finally walked through the door, she looked surprised to see me waiting with a serious expression. "Hey, what's up?" she said, her tone light as if we were just having a casual chat. "Melissa, we need to talk about us," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to know if you're willing to do the work to rebuild our marriage. If you really want this to work, I need to know you're committed to changing." Her face fell, and I could see the tension creeping in. "Of course I want to make things work. I made a mistake, but I love you. Just give me a chance." "Love isn't enough when trust is broken," I said bluntly. "I need to know you're willing to make real changes. No more secrets, no more lies. Can you do that?" She hesitated, her face revealing that she was already thinking of excuses. "But you have to understand it's complicated. Derek and we had something special, but I realized I don't want that anymore. I want you, Greg." "Then prove it," I challenged, my voice firm. "I need you to cut ties with him completely. No more contact, no more excuses. If you can't do that, then we can't move forward." Tears welled up in her eyes and she took a step toward me, reaching out like she wanted to bridge the gap between us. "I'll do it, I promise. I'll tell him it's over. Just please, let's not throw away everything we've built together." "Words are cheap, Melissa," I replied, my voice unwavering. "I need action if you want to be with me. I need to see you take that step. I need to feel that you're committed to fixing this." She nodded, desperation etched on her face. "I will. I'll text him right now and tell him it's over." I watched her as she pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she typed. There was a part of me that wanted to believe her, to trust that she could really make this commitment. But the other part of me was still wary, still hurt. I felt like I was standing on a tightrope, unsure if I'd fall or if I'd find my footing again. When she finished texting, she looked up expectantly. "I sent it. I told him it's over. I want you, Greg. I want our family." I wasn't sure how to respond. I wanted to believe that she meant it, but the lingering doubt was like a dark cloud hovering over me. "Okay," I said cautiously, "but this is just the first step. I need time to process everything, and we need to talk about how to rebuild the trust that's been broken." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm so sorry for everything, Greg. I promise I'll make it right." As the night settled in, I felt an odd mixture of hope and caution. I wanted to work on things, but I also knew that I had to guard my heart. I needed to be cautious about diving back into the deep end of our relationship when I was still treading water. In the following days, Melissa did her best to show her commitment. She cut off contact with Derek, and I even saw her delete his number from her phone. She was attentive, trying to rekindle the intimacy that had been lost. We started going out together more, revisiting some of our favorite spots, and although the memories felt bittersweet, I couldn't deny that there was a flicker of something familiar between us. But I was still haunted by the past. I had a constant knot in my stomach, and every time she smiled at me, I couldn't shake the memory of her deceit. It was one thing to forgive, but another to forget. Trust is not built overnight. It takes time, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to invest that time into our marriage yet. I began to think about what I truly wanted. Did I want to fight for our marriage, or was it time to let go? The internal battle raged on as I tried to navigate this new chapter in my life. I wanted to give her a second chance, but the question loomed, could I? The emotional roller coaster we were on was exhausting. I knew I had to make a decision, and soon. I needed to be honest with myself about my feelings and what I was willing to accept. Time would reveal the truth, and I just hoped it wouldn't hurt too much when everything came to light. As the weeks passed, life began to settle into a new, unsettling rhythm. Melissa was doing everything she could to show me she was committed to rebuilding our marriage. She was affectionate, attentive, and even went so far as to plan a little weekend getaway for just the two of us. She practically bubbled with excitement when she told me about it, her eyes shining with a hope that made my heart ache. But inside, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. Every time I glanced at her, I couldn't shake the memories of betrayal that lingered like a shadow. It was difficult to fully commit to this renewed relationship when my mind was still reeling from the hurt. That weekend, we found ourselves at a quaint little cabin in the woods. It was beautifully secluded, surrounded by the sounds of nature and the smell of pine. As we settled in, I tried to push my doubts aside and focus on the moment. We hiked, had a cozy dinner by the fireplace, and even shared some laughs over old inside jokes. For a fleeting moment, I felt a glimpse of what we once had, and it almost felt right. But then came the night after dinner, when we sat under the stars with a bottle of wine. It was peaceful, and I could see the glimmer of hope in Melissa's eyes as she leaned against me. I wanted to reach out, to let her back into my heart, but the little voice in my head kept reminding me of her deception. "I know I messed up," she said, her voice soft as she gazed at the stars. "I've been thinking about everything. I really want to make things right, Greg. You mean everything to me." I looked at her, taking in her words, trying to decipher the truth behind them. "Melissa, I appreciate you saying that, but I need more than just words. I need to know we can trust each other again," I replied, my tone steady. "I swear I'm committed to you. I'll do anything it takes to earn back your trust," she insisted, her eyes pleading. "Trust isn't something you can just promise," I said, shaking my head. "You have to show it through your actions." The conversation hung heavy in the air, and I could feel the tension settling between us. I didn't want to ruin the moment, but I also couldn't ignore the reality that loomed over our heads. That night, as we lay in the bed of the cabin, I could feel her warmth next to me, but it felt distant. I tried to focus on the sound of her breathing, but my mind was racing. I needed clarity. I needed to know if I was going to be able to forgive her and start anew. But the anxiety of uncertainty gnawed at me. I had been so ready to forgive, to let go of the anger, but I realized I was still holding onto a grudge, a fear that made it difficult to fully accept her back into my life. I was torn between wanting to move forward and being scared of getting hurt again. The next morning, I woke up early, unable to shake off the weight of my thoughts. I decided to take a walk outside to clear my head. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the landscape. It was beautiful, and for a moment I felt a sense of peace wash over me. As I walked along the path, I found a quiet spot and sat down, my mind racing with the possibilities of what could come next. I thought about my own happiness, my future, what I truly wanted. Did I want to give Melissa another chance? Could I even do that after everything? When I returned to the cabin, Melissa was awake and preparing breakfast. She turned to me with a bright smile, and my heart sank a little. I could see the hope in her eyes, and I didn't want to crush it. But the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. "Good morning. I was worried when I didn't see you," she said, her voice cheerful. "I needed some air," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Can we talk?" She nodded, and we sat down at the small kitchen table. I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation could change everything. "I've been thinking," I began, staring at my hands as I struggled to find the right words. "About us, our future. What about it?" she asked, leaning forward, her expression earnest. "I want to believe that we can rebuild what we had," I said slowly. "But it's going to take time. I'm not sure I will be able to fully trust you again, and I can't just pretend everything is okay." Her smile faltered, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "I understand. I know I've hurt you, and I'm willing to give you all the time you need. Just please don't give up on us," she said, her voice sincere. I felt my heart ache at her words. I don't want to give up, but I also need to be honest with myself. If I'm going to stay in this marriage, I need to see real change. No more secrets. I need to know that you're not going to go back to him or to anyone else. I swear, I'll cut off anyone who threatens our relationship, she promised, her eyes wide with hope. You're my priority, Greg. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. I nodded, but I knew it wasn't enough. I needed to see consistency in her actions, a willingness to communicate openly, and a commitment to making our relationship a priority. As the day went on, we spent time together hiking and enjoying the beauty of nature around us. There were moments of laughter, but I couldn't shake the underlying tension. The truth was, I was still grieving the marriage I thought we had. That night, we sat on the porch, sipping wine and watching the stars. It was peaceful, but the silence between us spoke volumes. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I knew I couldn't keep living with one foot in and one foot out of our marriage. The next few days would be crucial. I needed to see how dedicated she really was to rebuilding our relationship. I knew that whatever choice I made, I had to be true to myself. As I lay awake that night, listening to the sounds of nature surrounding us, I felt a flicker of hope alongside the weight of uncertainty. This was a turning point, but the path ahead was still unclear. Would we emerge stronger, or would this betrayal continue to haunt us? Only time would tell. After our weekend in the cabin, life returned to a semblance of normalcy, but I felt like I was in a delicate dance with my emotions. The tension hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful, but poised to shatter at any moment. I was still processing the emotional fallout from the betrayal, and although Melissa was putting in the effort to show me she was committed to our marriage, I remained guarded. The first few days back home went well. She was attentive, cooking meals, and trying to reconnect in ways that felt genuine. I appreciated the gestures, but it also felt like she was overcompensating for her past mistakes. I couldn't help but question whether her newfound enthusiasm was sincere or just an act to keep me from walking away. Then came Wednesday, a seemingly ordinary day that turned extraordinary in the worst possible way. I had just returned home from work, ready to unwind, when I found Melissa on the phone in the kitchen. I could hear the cheerful tone in her voice, and my heart sank when I recognized the name she mentioned, Derek. "Yeah, babe, I miss you too," she said, her voice flirty and light. I froze, the world around me came to a standstill. My heart raced, and I struggled to breathe as I pressed myself against the wall, trying to catch snippets of the conversation. I can't wait to see you again. Just be careful, okay?" She continued, laughter spilling from her lips, and I felt my stomach twist in knots. I couldn't listen any longer. Rage consumed me. I stormed back into the living room and grabbed my phone, doing my best to keep my hands steady as I dialed her number. My heart pounded in my chest as I prepared for the showdown. "Greg, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice betraying a hint of nervousness when she saw my face. "Everything is far from okay, Melissa," I shouted, unable to contain my anger. "Do you want to explain what I just heard?" She froze, the color draining from her face. "What are you talking about? Don't play games with me. I heard you, Melissa. You were just talking to Derek." I shouted, my voice echoing in the room. Her expression morphed from confusion to guilt, and I could see the panic sinking in. "Oh my God, I didn't mean for you to hear that." I was just what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You were just flirting with the guy you said you ended things with. How can you do this to me again?" "I swear I was just trying to make sure he understood it's over," she exclaimed, her voice rising to match mine. "I didn't want him to think there was still something there." I ran my hands through my hair, frustration boiling over. "You clearly didn't do a very good job. You're still talking to him like it's nothing. Are you even trying?" The tears tumbled down her cheeks as she pleaded, "Please, Greg, you have to believe me. I'm trying to do the right thing. I didn't mean for it to happen that way." "Trying isn't enough anymore," I shouted back, my emotions spiraling into a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "You've made it abundantly clear that you can't be trusted. Why should I believe anything you say?" In that moment, I felt the dam inside me break. All the hurt and confusion crashed down like a tidal wave. I had wanted to give her another chance, but with every new betrayal, my resolve crumbled. I couldn't keep putting myself through this emotional torment. "Greg, please," she cried, her voice shaking. "I'm not the same person I was before. I want to change. I just need you to give me a chance." But it was too late. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest as I took a step back, separating myself from her. "I can't do this anymore, Melissa," I said, my voice breaking. "I need to think about my own well-being." Her eyes widened in horror, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of realization that this might be the end. "No, don't say that. I can fix this. I'll do better, I promise," she pleaded. The desperation in her voice made my heart ache, but I couldn't let it sway me. "I can't keep forgiving you just for you to turn around and stab me in the back again. I've given you multiple chances and you keep throwing them away. Please, please don't leave me," she begged, and I could see the panic in her eyes. It was a gut-wrenching sight, but I couldn't let it distract me from the truth. "Right now, I need space," I replied firmly. "I can't keep living like this. I need to think about what's best for me and whether this marriage is worth saving." I turned away from her, feeling the tears stinging my own eyes. This was it, the moment where everything changed yet again. I knew I had to be strong. I couldn't let my heart lead me back to the familiar pain. That night I slept fitfully on the couch, the weight of the world pressing down on me. I thought about the years we'd spent building a life together, the dreams we shared, and the love I thought we had. But with every passing moment, I realized that trust had been irreparably broken, and I couldn't ignore that. The next morning, I woke up determined. I had to make a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. I knew I couldn't keep dwelling in a relationship filled with deceit and betrayal. It was time for me to take control and decide what I wanted moving forward. I thought about the possibility of separation. Maybe it was time to take a step back from our relationship and reevaluate what I wanted. I didn't want to continue living in the shadow of betrayal, and I knew I had to find a path forward that was right for me. After I gathered my thoughts, I sat down with Melissa. I could see the exhaustion lining her face, but I knew I had to be clear about my intentions. "Melissa," I began, my voice steady, "I need to be honest with you about where I stand." She looked up, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "What is it?" "I think we need some time apart. I can't keep going through this cycle of hurt. I need space to figure out what I want," I said firmly. Her face fell and I could see the realization hit her hard. "You want to separate just like that?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, my heart aching at the sight. "Yeah, I think it's what's best for both of us right now. I need to prioritize my own well-being." The tears began to fall as she shook her head. "Please, Greg, don't do this. I'll change, I promise. I can fix this," but I knew what I needed. I can't keep waiting for that change. I need to find my own path without being tied to someone who has hurt me time and time again. Her sobs filled the room, but I remained firm in my resolve. I couldn't let emotions cloud my judgment any longer. I had to take control of my life, and that meant stepping away from the pain. As I packed my belongings, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I was letting go of something familiar, but I was also freeing myself from the pain that had settled too deeply within my heart. It was time for me to move forward, even if it meant walking into the unknown. The moment I stepped out the door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but I also knew the journey ahead would be challenging. I was determined to find peace, to rebuild my life one step at a time, and to learn from this experience. I had been hurt and betrayed, but I was ready to embrace the future and reclaim my happiness. It was time for me to heal, and I was prepared to do whatever it took to find my way back to myself. As I stepped outside, the fresh air hit me like a wave of clarity, washing away some of the heaviness that had settled in my chest. I wasn't sure where I was heading, but I knew I had made the right decision. I had taken a vital step toward reclaiming my life, even if it felt daunting. For the first few days after the separation, I stayed with a friend who had offered me a place to crash. I needed the distance from Melissa, both physically and emotionally. It was strange being in a space that wasn't my own, but it gave me the freedom to process my thoughts without her presence looming over me. I spent hours walking in parks, trying to clear my head and regain a sense of normalcy. I discovered new coffee shops, explored the city, and even picked up a book I had meant to read ages ago. I realized how much I had neglected myself in the whirlwind of our relationship, and I began to reconnect with parts of myself that had been overshadowed by the turmoil. But healing wasn't linear. Some days were brighter than others, and there were moments when I caught myself reminiscing about the good times Melissa and I had shared. Those memories were bittersweet, and I often felt a pang of regret. I missed the laughter, the intimacy, and the companionship. But every time I thought about what had happened, I also remembered the pain, the betrayal that shattered our foundation. After a week in limbo, I felt ready to face Melissa again. We had agreed to meet at a cafe to talk about the logistics of our separation, how to divide our shared belongings, our finances, and the next steps. I was nervous, but I knew it was necessary. I had to stand firm in my decision, and I needed to show her that I was serious about rebuilding my life. When I arrived at the cafe, my heart raced. The atmosphere was bright and bustling, a sharp contrast to the heaviness in my mind. I spotted her sitting at a small table, her head down as she fiddled with her coffee cup. She looked up when I approached, and for a moment our eyes locked, a mixture of pain and longing passing between us. "Hey," I said softly, feeling the weight of the past hanging over us like a thick fog. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. There was an uncertainty in her eyes, but also a flicker of hope. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us grappling with the enormity of our situation. Finally, I broke the silence. "I wanted to talk about how we move forward from here," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "Right," she nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination. "I've been thinking a lot too, Greg. I want to prove to you that I can change. I want to make it right." I took a deep breath, preparing to reinforce my boundaries. "I appreciate that, but I need you to understand that this separation is necessary for both of us. I can't dive back into what we had without knowing that I can trust you completely. That's going to take time." "I know," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't expect you to just forgive me overnight. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I'm just asking for a chance to show you." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I understand that, but I also need to focus on my own healing right now. I need time to figure out what's next for me, and that might mean we stay apart longer than you want." Her face fell, but I could see the acceptance in her expression. "I get it. I'm just so scared of losing you for good, Greg. I never wanted to hurt you, and I hate that I did." "I know you didn't mean to, but intentions don't erase the impact of your actions," I replied gently. "I've got to prioritize my own well-being. I need to learn how to trust myself again before I can trust you." We spent the next hour discussing logistics, how to handle our shared finances, who would keep what, and how to approach our living situation moving forward. It was practical and necessary, but it felt surreal. I couldn't shake the sense that we were both losing a piece of ourselves in this process. When we walked out of the cafe, I felt a bittersweet mix of emotions. We had crossed a threshold, and while it was painful, I also felt a sense of relief. As we hugged goodbye, I held on a little tighter than I intended, knowing that this might be one of the last moments we would share as a couple. "Take care of yourself, Melissa," I whispered, stepping back to look into her eyes. "You too, Greg. I hope you find what you're looking for," she replied, her voice soft yet resolute. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt both heavy and light at the same time. I had made a decision that was right for me, and I knew it was the beginning of a long journey toward healing. I was determined to embrace whatever came next, whether it meant focusing on self-discovery, seeking new relationships, or simply learning to enjoy my own company again. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild my life piece by piece. I took up hobbies I had long abandoned, connected with friends, and learned to set boundaries that prioritized my needs. I started therapy, where I unpacked the complexities of my emotions and learned the importance of self-love and trust. The road ahead was uncertain, but I felt a new sense of empowerment. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I learned that while love is important, self-respect and trust in oneself are vital in any relationship. As I moved forward, I realized that, despite the pain I had endured, I was in control of my own happiness. I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. And maybe, just maybe, I would find love again. This time it would be built on the solid foundation of trust and authenticity. I had learned a harsh lesson, but it was one I was grateful for. Life goes on, and so must I.